Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to the Accreditation Audit Committee meeting for December of 2025. I'm glad to have you all here with us today. I am going to actually share my screen so you have the agenda, and then I will turn it over to our chair, Dr. Jennifer Bay Williams.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. It is straight up 2:00, so we are going to get started. I am appreciative of everyone being here in the midst of all that is happening this week at institutions and schools everywhere. So thank you for your commitment to educational preparation. We will begin with the approval of the minutes from June 9th. I'll give you a second. And Melissa, were you going to pull those up, or? I know we have them in a folder.
They're pretty short minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes.
And I'll take a second.
Second, Casey.
Susan, you were the second?
Yes, please.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. We'll do all in favor. Could you just like hold your hand up like this, or you can do the virtual version of it too? All right. Opposed? All right. So the minutes are accepted as submitted. And now on to the setting the date for spring of 2026. What we used to do at the end of the meeting, now we do first.
So there was a proposal that we move this meeting to either end of April, beginning of May. And so if we could look at setting a date that would work for people at that time, that would be helpful. So does beginning of May work better for people?
We have graduation on May 7th. So I say that's a day that would be out for me. But other than that, I would be okay with it.
That is also U of L graduation. So point well taken. And graduations, I think, tend to be later in the week. So if we look in general, could you nod your head? Is May an easier time to convene than June? In general, okay. We've found that there's just with vacations and everything else that we're either pulling people in from their vacation to meet with us, or we're having trouble scheduling the meeting. So, okay, so we're thinking May, maybe early in the week. How about something like, I'm just going to randomly pick May 12th. It's a Tuesday. I see Danny nodding. I can't see everybody's face. So if that time does not work for you, if you already know that time does not work, could you either unmute yourself or put something in the chat?
We are having some professional development that week. If we could make it the week after.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay, so we have the week after would be the 19th. Same thing. If that works for you, great. If it does not, could you unmute or say something in the chat?
May 19th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Does 2 p.m. work, or do we want to do it in the morning?
I'm flexible. I like mornings. I'm happy to do it at the same time. It doesn't matter to me. Well, let's keep this time then. So 2:00, May 19th, 2026.
Time flies, my goodness.
And that is going to be, Melissa, you'll be sending out an invite, right?
Yep.
And we'll
do
reserve
that right after.
Don't you usually reserve, is it a 2-hour window or is it 90 minutes?
So this upcoming one, we're going to have a kind of a big Probably, we might do 3 hours. We have a few different things coming through,
All
so
right, then I might suggest a 1 o'clock start time.
1 o'clock, sure.
Unless somebody's objects.
Okay.
All right, so we are finished with the first 20 minutes of our agenda and it's 2:05. I love this job. Let's move into the program approval for Western Kentucky University. Okay, so we've had a chance to review the materials. And Melissa, do you want to summarize their CAPE review?
Well, Western Kentucky had no AFIs, no stipulations, so they will be hopefully a recipient of the Frank Murray Award. It was a good visit, and they're doing a lot of creative and innovative things. So, I know that the CAPE letter of approval was in the folder for you, and we had looked at their programs in the program review process before that, and that also went really well. And so, yeah, I think that says everything. When people have these great visits, it makes it very easy.
All right, so I think the most straightforward thing to do so we can document votes is for you to vote yes or no into the chat. Does that sound right, Melissa? You think I'd remember this from the last time, but
Yes, and Sue may have to recuse herself as a faculty member of Western. Not that that would
correct.
bias her.
Right. You could do nothing or you could type in abstain. Because you know how in Teams we get to keep this for the future.
Okay, I'll just abstain.
And then Melissa, will you just end up initialing this for us, or do you want us to go in
Yep.
to the
No,
file and
I'll
initial
I'll
it?
put this in there and I'll send it to you because you get to add your little signature there at the bottom.
Oh,
So
that's exciting. Okay. Well, congratulations to Western.
Yay, thank you.
Yes.
I'm trying to type, it's not typing. I'm totally recusing myself here. There we go.
Okay, NKU also had their accreditation for initial and advanced. And was it similarly successful? Melissa,
It-
what would you like to say?
It was. They with a little back and forth, but their final letter, they had no AFIs, no stipulations. Also should be up for the Frank Murray Award. Very proud of all the programs that have been going through Cape lately. They've been doing amazing things. Northern again, a lot of innovative practices, things that their approach to things is a little different than I've seen at other schools, and has been very innovative in the way that they're working with different partners and things that they're implementing in their schools and stuff. So again, it was a great visit. We had a great program review prior to that. So looking forward to going to the Cape Con next year and being there to watch all of these wonderful people win their awards. So.
All right, so is there, I didn't ask this on the other one, but I probably should have. Is there any discussion? All right, then you can enter your vote in the chat. Thank you, Danny, for actually labeling your response. That was wise.
I was afraid that if we look back on this, the yeses make it kind of
Confusing.
lost.
Correct, correct. Because you have to watch the record. You have to be listening to the alignment. That was wise. I'll try to remember that for next time. All right, so it's now 2:10 and we're through the
I
first 30
know we're
minutes of our
very far
agenda.
ahead, which is why
Yes.
it's wonderful
But
that
it's to the credit of these institutions for their hard work day to day, and also in their presenting and putting that work forward, that those were so they were reviewed so quickly.
and I have to say, this is the easiest part of the process. I think people don't realize it sounds like a bunch of people together say, "Oh, you did great." But I think all of you can attest to the amount of work that goes in to getting to that great mark is a lot. And it's years and years and years of work and a lot of people coordinating, putting things together. So even though I think the last few meetings we've come across like these are very easy things to do, I want to emphasize that they are not on the other side of it. But because of all that hard work, it makes it easy on our side of it to be able to congratulate them and move forward. So, okay, our next thing is the Brusha update. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Ashley, you should be able to share,
Okay.
I believe.
Let's check and see.
There we go.
Are you good?
All right, I am going to mute
Perfect.
unless somebody has a question.
I was just
Jenny
going
is
to,
there.
yeah, I'm going to also mute, but Ashley is sharing and she's stopping at the end of each standard for a moment for the committee to ask questions, and then she'll go on to the next category instead of doing the whole presentation and waiting till the end. So I feel like many people receive that email, but because this is an open meeting, I just wanted to say that for the record. That's the format that we agreed to.
All right. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. And I'm glad to see that you all move swiftly through meetings and can celebrate working through them pretty quickly. I have a couple of things. I did follow that format, but there are a couple of things at the end that really didn't fit into any of those, but will help see a bigger picture at some point. I also want to recognize that Dr. Amanda Morris, our academic dean, is here with us in support of the School of Education. So she is on this meeting as well. She just traveled back from the SAC-COC conference, so she is probably exhausted. So welcome back to campus. I haven't even seen her today. So that's how fresh off the road she is. All right. Well, we are excited to share some of the things that have changed since our last time we got to visit with each other, which was in June. June 9th, to be exact, as I went to look at the PowerPoint. And as I was putting this together, I realized that we had a lot of plans. And as you all know at your institutions, we just finished up finals last week, submitted final grades, and now we are at the point where we can start analyzing data. So this actually might go a little bit quicker on my end because there's not too much more to share. So what I did, I just pulled out the AFS that we did have in standard 1 and standard 2. You all have access to that, but then some of the things that have changed since we met in June, this data was already there, but I wanted to connect that we are going to be pulling, and we have pulled some of the data, but not analyzed it. For the learning differences, the development, and the environment. So that's standards, that INTAS standards 1 through 3 for our methods courses and for our clinical and practicum classes. One thing that we have decided to do differently, and we're going to make this shift with our spring courses, and this is kind of where we came up with this idea, and we've really listened to like our students and our cooperating teachers of what that might need. And we are going to take their methods courses, and we go out to see them. The university supervisor goes out to see them at least twice a semester. We have those students also do a self-evaluation, and we have the cooperating teacher do an evaluation as well, or an observation. And that's a little bit different than what we've done from the past. So we have noticed that we want to try to catch any of those misconceptions or give our students more guidance and feedback sooner in their program than waiting until they get to practicum and to clinical practice. We want to catch them when they're in those methods courses, putting those things into practice, working with those students. So that's one of the changes that we are making we made part of this semester, and then we'll take the next step and put it full implemented in the spring. And you'll have to excuse me, I have a cold, so I sound like a frog. Okay, questions? I don't like it because I can't see you.
So Ashley, so really there isn't any data analysis that has happened since the last time we met, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have a
Correct. It's-
timetable for when that will happen?
I do, and that is at the end of the presentation, which we are scheduled to meet on the 18th is our data day. We're going to spend the day diving into data, and we already have the agenda and the format. This gives our faculty a chance to get their signature assignments and all of their observations. And we still have some students that are out student teaching right now, and get those into Watermark for us to be able to pull that data as well.
Thank you.
Do you
So-
have a, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. So the data analysis that you attached on your reporting form, what assessment tools did you use to gather that data? It just said a certain percentage met the NTAS standards 1 through 3. So what tools, where did this data come from? What did you use to say 83% met the standard or met expectations?
This was on our observation rubric that we use when we go out and we see our students. So last semester, we also went out and did observations on some of our methods courses. And that's the tool that we used for this.
So, I'm on the same topic, so I have the same,
Okay,
I'm looking
okay.
at the same form. So what's unclear to me is you name 4 different courses. So I think that means that for each of those courses, they're getting observed.
Yes.
So you have your students and they're each getting observed at least 4 times because there's 4 courses, but it's not
Mhm.
clear how many times. And then when you say 15 out of 18, it sounds like that's the number of evaluations, not the number of candidates. Like it's hard to get a feel for the extent that each candidate actually is faring across those 4 courses. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
That's, I mean, there's 2 pieces there.
Mhm.
It's about what does that mean in terms of each course? And then what does it mean for each candidate?
Okay. So break down between the course and then the candidate as well.
Right.
And to see the observation rubric would be really helpful.
Okay.
Right. That's, I feel like you may have shared this with us before, but I haven't seen it in a while. I don't know if it's a reliable, valid in-task observation tool,
Mhm.
or if it's one that you've constructed or what it is, but that's part of the process is to be sure that you're either using one that's already been established reliability and validity from another institution, or that you have, that's a different standard that we're not on yet. But if it's your own instrument, that you have validated it and that it's reliable. So anyways, but yeah, for this data, it's hard to get a sense of how many students were evaluated in the first place and how they're doing and that sort of thing. So, because that's what the standard is about, is candidate success.
Mhm.
And so
And-
just to clarify, your last data day was in May, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
My point goes back to what Jennifer said about, and Coletta said about signature assignments and rubrics. You have several signature assignments here that you talk about, the signature assessment and plan of action, and then the IEP and lesson plan. But the rubrics are not there. And then, so it makes me, I look at the data and I try to decide, are all of those things included? And so it is very difficult to try to figure out if it's just the observation rubric, then where do these other pieces fit in your assessment system? I do think, I do have another question. Do you disaggregate by program?
We do. We have very small numbers in a lot of our programs, so we usually group our special ed all together. But they're dual certified, so it would be special ed and elementary. So we pull those numbers in both directions, but we pull the classes that just pertain to elementary into the elementary group.
Okay. All right. Because then you can get a sense of, is it a program issue or is it a programs wide issue? And then how you can attack it from there.
And Ashley, since this is the last update before you have your revisit, if you have those things, you can pull them up and share them or have somebody share them. But I mean, to answer, you're gonna have to answer their questions during this meeting because this is the last one. So what they're asking for, there's not another chance to resubmit. So if you can answer these questions, I think that would be helpful for the committee.
Okay. I guess to go back, yes, we do by program. I know that this is my last chance to share with this committee. Is it something that I can upload into the file? Or do I need to stop right now and upload exactly what they're asking?
Well, I mean, like the evidence was supposed to be submitted, and so like rubrics and observation instruments and the data, like those were all things that they'd asked for in previous meetings. So we've not had I've not had something like this. So I mean, can you speak to like the data that you like for what Dr. Bay Williams brought up? Can you speak to how you divide by courses, or do you have some demonstration of how that data is shown? Can you provide validity and reliability for your instruments? Do you have that available that you can pull that up and show that? I understand if there is, data, student identifiable information, we wouldn't be able to share that, but how the
Could you-
rubrics fit in
Okay.
the system, that sort of thing. Like, can you pull up the rubrics? Can you walk them through what those are, how you know they're valid and reliable?
Okay, hang on a second. So the visit is for standards 4 and 5. I know that we have to do program approval
Yes.
too.
Yeah, program approval is for standards 1 and 2, which is
Right.
what you've been presenting to them for the last 2 years.
So this is not something that I would be able to present to this committee in April, even though my visit is in February, but February's visit is for standards 4 and 5.
February is the revisit for the probation for accreditation. And then they also vote on your program approval at that meeting, but typically all of the information is submitted prior to your accreditation visit for program approval. Program approvals typically happen prior to the accreditation visit. So this is the last one before your accreditation visit.
Okay. All right, and I'm trying to pull up everything that I can. I mean, I know that we have it, but at the same time, let's see. All right, so this is our observation rubric. We use this with all of our methods courses. It's aligned to the Danielson framework. It's also, as you can see, it is aligned to AQUIP, which that is the route that we were going, but also to NTASC and KTPS. Our dispositions in the four C's as well. Using the same language that they use. This is actually their rubric. We just did a little bit of a different formatting. So we pulled this off the Danielson framework website to use. So again, this is the observation evaluation we use with our methods courses. This is the one we also use with our clinical practice and our practicum courses. And this is the same document. It's just titled for practicum and clinical practice, their summative assessment or evaluation. Let's see. Sorry.
Let's see. Wait, before you take that
Okay.
down.
Sure. Sure.
So we're asking you to connect some of the dots here. So
Okay.
one of them is you have a 4-point rubric here, and then the data that you have posted is, I got to go back and pull that up. I also have a bunch of tabs.
Sorry,
You
I do
have
too.
met and not met as
Mhm.
your categories.
Mhm.
And so how does that connect to that? And then you have, let's see, if you scroll down a little bit, I'm also wondering which rows of this rubric go with the CAPE categories. But first, the met, not met, like, are you calling accomplished and exemplary met? Developing not met, or is developing met? How do you translate how they do on this?
In their practicum and methods courses, they're met at developing, accomplished, or exemplary. And at practicum and clinical practice, at clinical practice, they are met at accomplished or exemplary.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then I don't know if this helps too, excuse me, as well. I apologize. I feel very caught off guard and very unprepared, and that is absolutely not my professional side by any means. Um, Just trying to show this might do it. Hell, no, I can't move it. There it goes. Seriously. This is the same rubric, if you will, And this is how we pull it out of our data system. So this is where we've marked met or not met. So that's where that category comes into play, but it also allows us to align to different standards. And I know, let me scroll back up and just go to the first one. So our alignment to this one, and this shows that it is aligned to all of our standards as well. So not just the AQUIP. I know that the other document had AQUIP one there, but in Watermark, we do pull from the CAPE standards since we have to follow those standards. And we have our lesson plan rubric is also in here. And it is set up the exact same way. And this is their lesson plan rubric for the clinical practice placement. So the met and not met is at accomplished and exemplary. But again, it is also aligned to standards. They also have a self-evaluation or self-reflection. And this is something we started implementing in the spring of last year when they first take their teaching strategies class. Most of the time they are not admitted into the School of Education at this point, but they have taken an intro to ed class and usually one other ed course. So they're starting to get a little bit more invested in the profession. So this is where we start them. They self-evaluate 4 different times throughout their program. And it is a self-rating, but once we get through that, and that is the Danielson or the Kentucky Framework for Teaching. But they also have to identify their strengths and some of their weaknesses and then make a plan for it as well. This is just what we call our professional growth plan and self-reflection. So that is where the numbers from the other document come from.
Ashley, what kind of training, or like how do you do inter-rater reliability, or to make sure that everyone's on the same page when you're doing these evaluations and stuff? How do you keep track of that, or make sure you're all together?
Once we do our observations in our schools, it's usually, again, we have the same issue, I think, as a lot of smaller institutions where we don't necessarily have a paper pencil conversation. It's more of a conversation that we had to start making sure that we had during our meetings, but we do review any concerns that we might have with our students. But as far as the scoring, we review the instrument and then we review the lesson plan. And once a semester, we go over the recorded lesson. So each student in practicum and in student teaching has to do a recorded lesson. And then we go in and score those as well. And then in the spring, we're going to start having our methods classes do the same thing, record, and then that way they get that feedback earlier in their program.
And Ashley, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I know that as being part of the TAC group on the committee, that this was also presented to TAC, the rubric in the Danielson framework, and that all of the instructors within the School of Education were part of establishing the rubric and part of learning how to score it before it was initially adopted, if that may help you to know as well.
Did the committee have any other questions, or are we okay to have Ashley move on to the next?
I was just going to, I feel like this was hinted at, but I want to come back to the data, the results. Because if you look at the table that you used, that you shared with us, and we're on the very first one, and it has that like list of questions in the second column. And I'm going to call it up so that I don't get it wrong. But it has the guiding questions.
Mhm.
And so we're in this first category of guiding questions. And it's just hard to go through that list and actually find the answers based on what you provide in the third column. And so that's why we're pressing you to see what additional things you have. And so, for example, how does the EPP know candidates are prepared to teach diverse learners? When we go to your data set, you have these big numbers, and you've mentioned you have very few students. So you must have lots of data points for each student, but it's impossible to figure out in the end if your students actually met those standards. And you even note that you have like, and one of them, it was like 68% met, 32% not met. I mean, that's not a very good statistic.
Mhm.
I appreciate your honesty in reporting that data, but it's hard to figure out whether that means a third of your students didn't meet that standard. And then what happens? They don't get certified, or what happened? This is quality assurance. Like, are you making sure the candidates learn this? So it might be more common for an earlier assignment, in a progression. So maybe one of these like other assignments that you've offered, like the elementary math methods one might be early in their experience, that they would have deficits in those areas. But by the time they complete the program, you'd like to see where there's a very high percentage of success across the standards. That's how you meet the standards, that the experiences that you have in place give us confidence that the candidates are going to graduate with these competencies that are, these standards, so to speak. So it's hard to interpret this data because it's not by student, but the data itself is worrisome because it shows a high percentage of students who aren't meeting the standards, which then raises questions about the learning that they're, acquiring in the program.
Hmm.
If
So
that
Jenny,
makes
I
sense.
just pulled up to share my screen so people can see. This is the report from June. So Ashley, what she's talking about are the guiding questions over here on the side. This is what they were looking for. And then
And you heard earlier, just if you click on these blue links, these assignments are really short. I mean, very, very short. So it's hard to see what standards they meet. It's hard to know what the details are the students are provided in order to meet whatever expectations are. And then there's no rubric there to know how, it's worth 150 points. Like, how do you educate the student to what a successful product looks like? And how is that mapped to the standards? Like, that's a huge missing piece over to the data, and how much data, and then the data, we don't know what data is coming from which courses. That makes sense. Or in which data points are assigned to which student. And then this is a whole other question, but you link to that survey that they do, but the assignment that they do is not shared. That's the form that they fill out, but what is the actual assignment? Where's the rubric for assessing their ability to do an IEP plan? I mean, all of these things sound interesting, but there just isn't enough detail to see that it's to see what the student's actually doing, and then how you're assessing it.
And these are the same questions from last December's guiding questions. The only thing that I had to follow up with was the diversity, equity, inclusion, which if you didn't address was okay, because it depends on what your institutional stance was on that as a private institution.
Right.
But these are the CAPE questions that have been used throughout the report.
So at this point, do you feel that, I mean, I don't know I don't know where I'm at. I don't know if this is something that, and I know that it was due 2 weeks ago, actually 3 weeks ago, is when it was due. Or 2 weeks ago, can't remember. Tuesday, 2 Tuesdays before Thanksgiving. That the committee wants me to fix, or is this in a very fast turnaround time? And get.
I
and
think
up-
the struggle for the committee is that there's been 3 updates and I know they've requested rubrics and things before. So the same questions have been used and they've not been answered over the last 3 updates. And so I think I think that's the struggle, is that there's been opportunity, but not. I think the committee has the same questions that they had when you were first put on probation, is I think the problem. So, I mean, if you want to go through, I mean, if you can show them things like that, the problem is then they can't analyze it. And
Well, and I think that's where my question is at, is I can go through the presentation and I can show them, I can drop them into a file if they want to analyze it. I mean, we have a visit in February, and if if this is it and that impacts my standards 4 and 5,
no, the
then
commit the site visit team will look at standards 4 and 5. This committee has not looked at standards 4 and 5. They've only looked at standards 1 and 2 over the last 2 years. So they've
Okay.
not looked at standards 4 and 5.
So whenever I have my visit in February, the committee, or not the committee,
The site visit team.
site visit team, thank you, looks at 4 and 5, then they make the recommendation to this team.
Yes, and so
Or 4 and 5.
this team will vote on both your programs, which are standards 1 and 2, as well as they will also vote on the recommendation of for accreditation. And the options that they have for accreditation are to either give you full 7-year accreditation or revoke accreditation. And then for program approval, they can vote either to approve your programs or not approve your programs. So that's what the probation was, to try to get you set up for to make progress on that. And I think where the committee is struggling is that they're not seeing that progress.
Okay.
I mean, we can keep, I think if you want to look at the next point, I think that, I don't know if you have, like, the committee, you guys have seen the rubrics and what she showed for that one. Is there anything additional with that one that you want to ask, or? All right, and maybe we can look at the other ones. Actually, maybe the other ones will have more to them. So, and maybe the committee will. So if you want to share again, you can go to your next one and just do your best to answer their questions as thoroughly as you can. If you have to pull things up, that's okay.
Sure. So this is 1.2. And we pulled pass rates for 1.2, and this is probably going to be even more questions. Sorry, I'm flipping my pages as well. We did full pass rates, and oh, wrong side. There it goes. Our pass rates for our elementary, and because we do have those small numbers, for the Praxis 2 in the PLT, we had to do some pulling out of information that we have access to that is not necessarily reported. And having learned that if it's for accreditation, as long as it's not for publication, we can report those numbers that are lower than the ballot in number. So we did pull those numbers. And this is our pass rate just for the Praxis 2. Where there's gray, it just means that we have students that haven't taken it in that area. We also had made the note of and this is new since we met in June as well. So we've not published this into our minutes just yet, but this is part of our data as well. That our science and social studies and our English language arts for middle school definitely fell below what our expected was. Since then, we have changed our curriculum to more align with the content that was on the Praxis, but also making sure that we were hitting those SPA standards, or meeting those, shouldn't say hitting, meeting those SPA standards for science and for social studies, and using strategies that will also help our students out in the field. The PLT is at the bottom. Oh, sorry. Yes, at the bottom. I feel that that is a good pass rate for our PLT. Our students are definitely getting their pedagogy side of it. Content sometimes is a little bit more challenging for our students. Sometimes when you're taking a class as a freshman, you don't realize that that content you're taking really will help you on that Praxis 2 exam, even though when we say that, it will. So this is a new piece of evidence or documentation, if you will. And then we just received our literacy review as well. And we have the holistic rating of meets expectation. We have a meeting scheduled with the consultant next week to go over this as well. So questions on 1.2?
Well, this is just a curiosity. When you have different ends for the elementary scores, does that mean that a student might have taken the exam more than once, and so they're being counted in that N more than once? Do you know?
No, it's a one-time test taker is the option that I chose on the report. Best attempt is what their option was best attempt.
So, but for the elementary certification, they take all 4 of those exams. So it's just interesting that the ends are different across there then.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe because they have, some of them don't pass it, but then they still get jobs, and then they're able to be emergency certified, and then they come back and pass it maybe in the next calendar year.
Gotcha.
So maybe that, because it caught me off guard too. I thought my numbers don't make sense, but you know, it's the same way with like the ones that take the special ed, the LBD exam as well. Sometimes they'll get their certification in special ed and then only pass 3 of the 4 subsections of elementary. So then my numbers don't match.
So do you have other data in addition to your Praxis, especially for application of content?
Yes, we pull the data from our lesson plans as well. So let me, oh, hang on. There we go. Some days I wish I had more than 2 screens. So this is my template. Ironically, I'm using the same one for this meeting, but this is my template for our data day next week. So that was 1.2. So this is what we are going to be looking at is revisiting our SPA standards for alignment for this AFI. And then we're going to look at learning progression by the academic year and then also just by student sampling as well. So we also use our lesson plan. And if I scroll back up to the first one, so learner development, there's a section of our lesson plan that is learner development and differences in the environment. So we pull all three of those from like our contextual factors, from our classroom expectations, from is it aligned with the developmentally appropriate activities or the standards, that the standards align with what they're actually doing in the classroom. So we do have other data points from our lesson plans. And our lesson plans, we were in between two different systems. So we're pulling from our old, we kept the information ourselves, like on a spreadsheet, and what our new data system is. So it's a combination of different ones. And
Going back just a little bit on, you mentioned the emergency certification. Is that a data point that you track how many graduates have?
no, it is not. But what we do track is if they accept a certified teaching job, we don't track whether if it's a certified or if it's emergency certified or not, just that if they accept a certified teaching job their
Thank you.
first year. This is what I need Sister Betsy in here. For example, oops. And this does have student names on it. Maybe I can block them out real quick. But this is an example of how we tracked our portfolio scores in the last couple of years. And we have data from each semester that we have had applicants to clinical practice. So our benchmark, excuse me, our benchmark is a 2.5 in each of the NTAS standards. So anywhere where there is yellow, that is the standard that they had to resubmit. So again, we have data that is just from the fall of 24. And I thought I was working on my other screen. So this one I was able to
Yeah,
go
that
in
one
and-
I didn't see student names, so it was
Yeah,
okay.
that's my fault.
I don't want you to have student names out there.
Yeah, thank you. So we do have other data points that we do take.
So do you
for
have a
that.
rubric for your portfolio?
I do.
I noticed those were portfolio scores.
Mhm.
And how was the rubric developed to ensure that it's valid?
It was also developed, at first it started with our School of Ed faculty. Sorry, I'm doing too many things at once here. And then once we developed the rubric that is also aligned with the Danielson framework as well, we took that to our TIAC group for their feedback. On that TIAC group is not just our administration, but it's also community partners and also practicing and recently retired teachers. So they gave feedback as well for anything that they think that they our students might need for additional support. Sorry, I'm trying to find rubric.
So I'm curious as to, this is their portfolio for the program.
Yes, to get into this, into clinical practice. And
to get
then
into
they,
clinical practice.
Mhm.
And you have those columns for each of the in-test standards. I'm curious, yeah, I want to see this rubric, but I'm curious why seems to be a 3-point scale and why you wouldn't use the same rubric that you were using for the, that you already shared with us.
Okay, tell me 3-point scale.
When you were showing those scores, it looked like they were all between 0 and 3. Is it a 4-point scale?
It's a 4-point scale. Yeah, it is a
Okay.
4-point scale. Yeah.
Okay.
This just happens to be the year that we didn't have many. Yeah, we didn't have any that met a 4.0 in that standard, in that particular standard. All
Gotcha.
right. So, yeah. It actually used to be a 3.0 benchmark, but after talking with our TIAC group, that they felt at that point in the program, they would be at the developing level,
Mhm.
but not at the beginning of the developing level. So that's why they requested that we move it to the 2.5 instead of a 3.0, because accomplished, I mean,
Right.
that's,
Yeah, I
that's
do
a pretty
understand
hard.
that.
Yeah.
I do understand the Danielson model, and the accomplished is really for the accomplished and not
Yes.
necessarily the beginning teacher. So I get that. So the rubric that you're looking for then is different than the one that we saw earlier for the
Observations, I think,
observations.
is the word you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sits here. Okay. And here is our application to clinical practice portfolio that are aligned to the standards. And the reason why we went with the standards for the portfolio is because that's still, even though the Danielson framework or the Kentucky framework for teaching is what the practicing teachers use for part of their evaluations, knowing those Kentucky teacher performance standards are also important for our teachers to know what's expected of them. So this is their rubric for that. Any questions about this rubric?
Did you share already, or could you share?
Oh.
It could be that it's back on another page, the evidence that they submit as part of the portfolio.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can get to something that doesn't have a name on it.
You might be able just to block it out,
Yeah,
like
that's what
with
I
the
am.
shape.
I probably can go this way. Okay. Okay. So this is the digital portfolio that one of our students developed, and they have to choose 2 pieces of rationale for each of the Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards. And for this one, I'm trying to, they chose the evidence was their 3 generations project. I'm gonna skip that one because I think it has a student name on it. But this one, their second piece of evidence for standard 1 was their 4 stages of cognitive development. So their evidence was their presentation on appropriate toys for kids. And then they have a rationale to explain how that piece of evidence meets that standard. And I'll click, let me go back over here and I'll click on it and see. We should be. Yeah, let's see. So their piece of evidence was their presentation. And then their rationale. And another, this might help as well. Another, oh. There's one. The way that we communicate with our students as far as what they need for their, there it is. Application to clinical practice. Oh, I know where this is at. This is also linked on the other document, but we have an orientation to admission to clinical practice, and we go over things like confidentiality, which we do at the beginning of every semester in every ed class. They have a packet, just like with their demographic information. We go over what their recommendations need to be, what it will look like for their interview, any physical TB skin tests, background checks, things like that that are required through the districts. But we also talk about the portfolio as well. So we talk about it that it has to be aligned to the Kentucky Teacher Performance Standards, how many pieces of evidence. We also, in our courses, as we're doing assignments, we talk about what standard that it would tie to with the performance standards. So we tell them from the beginning, as you start doing different assignments in all of your classes, to either do files on your computers or create a file folder and start putting things in there. So whenever you go to build your application portfolio, then you'll have several things to choose from for each of the standards. And some things may fit into different standards, but it's about how you're writing your rationale that will make it work for that standard or not. So we don't just say, go build a portfolio. We do give them some guidance. They also get the rubric. They know the expectations of a 2.5 average as well. If they have to resubmit, they resubmit the standards that they did not meet that benchmark in as well. Any other questions?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to the, I just want to, we're on item R12. And so you have the praxis rate scores for the one route for the 3 years and the content exams. And then you were asked about other data around their content knowledge, like their applied content knowledge. And you just shared with us the process for admissions into the program. So I just want to make sure I'm following. You were asked by a committee member what in the program, once they're in the program, what other content assessments you do, and you pointed to the lesson plan. So for clarification, you're talking about the particular NTAS standards on content from the lesson plan. You pull those out. So if you're talking about whether a candidate met standard 1.2, you're looking at their pass rate. You're looking at that particular row in the lesson plan rubric.
Yes.
And you're also like, you're getting that at admissions score, and then you're doing the lesson plan, and then you're doing the praxis exam. Am I capturing that? I'm trying to make sure that
Yes.
I'm summarizing what you've shared with us.
Yes, but the portfolio is admission into clinical practice. So they've already been admitted into the program. They don't have a portfolio at the point when they are applying to just the School of Education. That is for when they're the semester before their
Oh,
student
sorry.
teaching.
So they're applying for clinical practice. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say. So you have the portfolio as they're applying to clinical practice, where there's also a content piece.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So the lesson plan, the content piece, the portfolio, and the praxis scores.
Yes. Yeah. And then this is just to show you the example of the lesson plan. So like their content, there is a lot in here, and our students always complain, right? But we also know that this is where we pull their content from, is from the procedures part, because it's the teaching of the content. So this is the section that we get the content from as well. And there is a rubric for that as well. And so here is the rubric. And our goal is, but since we've started going out to the field, we have the feedback from our observation as well. So their lesson plan, but
Hey, Ashley, can
we
you
also
scroll
have,
to the rows that show the content, like what Jenny was talking about? Can you
oh,
just,
yeah,
that
yeah.
way they can just look at those directly? Thank you.
I don't want to make it much smaller because you probably can't see it.
No, it's good.
Okay.
Or at
Okay.
least I can see it. I don't know about the committee, but
Okay.
okay. So these are the ones, this row, these two, is it one row? Yeah, it just kind of overlaps. Okay.
Yeah, it's on two
So
different
that's the
pages.
part that goes with the content, Jenny, I think. And committee.
Right. So this is something that we've dealt with in my own institution, but when you have so many things tagged on this row, it's complicated because they could be doing great on 1 and terrible on 6 for NTASC or KTPS. And what does that mean? Or like they score, like developing on this item. Does it really mean that they're developing for all of 1, 4, 6, and 7, or 2 of the 4, or 3 of the 4? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like this, having multiple standards on a single row, how in your data analysis, you're looking at the developing, you said developing and higher is met.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at that for lesson plan procedures. but you're drawing conclusions for a lot of the standards. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So how do you, as you're using this data source, how do you interpret that, like, just let's say this particular row, because there's a lot of standards mentioned here.
I don't know. There's not a clear answer for me. I can't point to something and say this is exactly, we all follow the same thing. And I know that goes back to the valid and reliable, but we also use that data analysis in the reflection part as well. So that's the after they teach, like if they cleared misconceptions, always tell them you can't say, do you got it? Do you got it? Because every kid's going to say, yes, I've got it.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of this one, of the lesson plan and procedures for part of the content to get the lesson started, to make sure that they are teaching content that's accurate. But then the put it in action is the data analysis. Are they teaching and assessing the same thing? But also, what reflection did they have from after teaching it?
Right. So, and I notice on those last two, you have it mapped to NTEST standard or KTPS standard 9.
Mhm.
And that's an easier match to make. If they're doing those things, then you're mapping it to NTEST standard 9. But if we're working on their applied content knowledge from this rubric, it's harder to tease out how you would know if they met or did not meet the content knowledge piece, because you don't have the NTEST standard on content, applied content knowledge anywhere as its own row.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we've toiled with the same thing because you have rubrics that match the task and you have rubrics that match the standards, and they're hard to pull together. But since you're using this as a source of evidence for the, content knowledge in action, that's why I was curious how you're using this, where you're pulling that data from, because of the multiple listings in the same row.
Right.
Anything else for R 1.2? All right, Ashley, I think you can go on to the next one.
Okay. Excuse me. R1.3, sorry. This would also be our lesson plans. We also have students do daily reflections whenever they get into clinical practice and to practicum. This is not necessarily something new. It just had to go through and take out some identifiers as well. So, but and again, this is similar to the same question as 1.2. It would be that lesson plan, section that I just lost. On the strategies and the procedures section. And so now that we've had the conversation about the content part, now my head is going, well, how do you do that, Ashley? As well as on the rubric. So for this one, points of evidence would be our lesson plan. It would also, or shouldn't say could be, it is also our observations when we go out, but also our cooperating teachers when they do their observations as well. That is not the right one. They use the same one we use. There we go. There it is. So this is also for our cooperating teachers. So in our handbook, we say that any course that has 10 or more field hours, we ask the cooperating teacher to complete an evaluation on. So our methods courses, our students are in there for at least 20 to 40 hours in each of their placements. And they're actually teaching students. So they're starting to write lesson plans, they're starting to interact more with students and be responsible for teaching. So those cooperating teachers complete this one, has more guidance, but also gives more feedback to our students. For those who just go in and do mainly observations with minimum teaching, but still may interact with students, we have our cooperating teachers complete this one, complete this evaluation, and this is more towards geared towards our dispositions. So are students behaving ethically? Are they advocating for students? Are they, how are they providing services? Are they being professional? And the majority of our maybe 200 level, with some exceptions, excuse me, of we have one 300 level that this would pertain to. But they're just starting to go out into the school. So we want to make sure that they're acting in a professional manner, and being ethical and communicating. Mainly it's the communication part, to make sure that they're being professional in their communication. So this one is a different evaluation tool.
Okay, so Ashley, how many cycles of data have you collected on these various instruments?
We have at least 3. I just went back
Okay.
to 3 because we were in two different systems.
Okay. And maybe we missed it. Can you pull up maybe where you submitted the 3 cycles of data in your report, or because I think people are struggling with trying to find where you submitted the data for these various items.
Hang on a second. I'll stop sharing in case something's over on this side that has a student name on it. Sorry.
Or I can open the report again.
Mine should be up to
Were we at 1.2?
1.3.
1.3, thank you. Okay, so so I think this is where we're having trouble.
Gotcha.
It's just hard for the committee to, like,
I understand.
it's assuming that you don't have data since there's none submitted.
I understand.
Well, we can go back to 1.3. I know that in June, my notes said that the committee asked for cycles of data in
Yeah,
that
because I had to
meeting,
go.
so
Yeah,
I know
because I
you
went
said
back
that
to
you
my
thought you
other.
had them, so I know they were hoping to see that. But if you want to pull your PowerPoint back up,
Yeah, because we even had the conversation that I was in between 2 systems, and
yes, yes. So.
and I went back and got it from the other one. Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll go back to 1.3 committee if there's any additional questions that anybody has.
I'm giving some wait time because we now have lots of tabs open. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions, so I think we're ready for the next thing, unless you're pulling something up.
No, that's
Ashley.
while you were waiting, I was clicking away.
Okay, last call for questions on 1.3. Okay, we're ready for 1.4.
1.4. Perfect. 1.4. Professional responsibility, engage in professional learning, act ethically, and take responsibility for student learning is the next one. And again, using the anecdotal notes from the student sampling, but also from the lesson plan and from that cooperating teacher eval as well. They also, when they apply to the School of Education, so to get into the program, and when they reapply to, or that when they apply to clinical practice, they go through an interview process. And part of that is their dispositions, looking at their dispositions. So the professional, the ethical, advocacy, service, and lifelong learning. And then the professional development side of it as well. That is one of the things that we are able to do. Sorry, is to partner with GREC. And we've had the opportunities to complete the Kagan strategies training. We are actually going through the John Antonetti training now. 2 faculty members and 4 students are doing that this semester and next semester. We have been able to attend some professional development on chairing an ARC meeting for new teachers and writing IEPs and classroom management. And I was trying to pull up our interview scores. And again, we use those at the point of applying to the School of Education and whenever they are applying to clinical practice. And okay, good. It opened on the other screen. Okay, this one just has pre-candidate on there for me. That doesn't tell you much. You don't need that. So this is one of the rubrics that we use for when they go through the application to clinical practice and admission to the School of Ed. So we use the same rubric for each of them so we can compare their growth over time. So these are the 4 C's, but here is our professional dispositions as well. When students apply to the School of Education, they give a presentation. And whenever they apply to clinical practice, they are interviewed as if they are being interviewed for a position in the school systems. The 3 faculty members serve on that interview team. On the interview team for the admission to clinical practice, we have a recently retired administrator or teacher that serves on that as an outside source as well. They also scored on their oral communication and written communication. They have to write an essay, a brief essay. And when they apply to the School of Education, the benchmark goal is an average of a 2.0 in all areas. But then when they get to admission or application to clinical practice, it's a 3.0 in all areas. And I do have those scores.
I think that was another thing the committee noted is there was also no evidence hyperlinked or analysis done. So if you want to share some of the trend data that you've noticed, because there was no hyperlinks to any evidence for this one either.
I'm gonna have Sister Betsy send that to me. the interview scores. Maybe. Usually we keep them all in the same drive, but of course they're not there. It's recommendations. While she is sending that over, oh no, hang on, I think I have it. There we go. Oh, found one thing. I didn't look right. Just a second, let me confirm. Name. Oh, we interviewed a lot that semester. Okay. Here we go. All right. So I've blacked out the names and the interviewer name as well. So this is a breakdown of all of the different criteria for students to meet, all the subcategories. And again, this one is admission to the School of Ed. So the benchmark is an average score of a 2.0. So you will see that looking across all of these, there is one here that even though in the 4Cs, still scored an average of a 2.0 in all the categories. Over in the other section, which is the disposition section, the average was not a 2.0, so they had to redo their interview. When they redo an interview, we rescore, shouldn't say redo, we rescore the section that they didn't meet that benchmark on. Students do know what their score is, and we give them feedback on how to improve. And the majority of the time, it's making sure that they understand what the vocabulary means. Something as simple as not understanding what the word advocacy means, even though we used it several times, or what the word collaboration means. Working together sometimes doesn't click as collaboration. So as far as our trends goes over time, we've seen that students typically pass their all sections of their interview scores or interview portion of their interview, sorry. And again, every now, probably once an academic year, we have one student that has to redo an interview. They usually meet and exceed the benchmark for both the application to clinical practice and to the School of Ed. Sorry, I'm pulling. Oh, wait a minute. Ah. Okay. I wish I knew how to turn that off to where it doesn't open on that page. Sorry. We have had one student who did not show up for their interview. So this is the application to clinical practice. They were a semester away from doing their student teaching and just did not show up to clinical or to their interview. They also were showing other concerns in their other coursework as well. So they were deferred into the next semester to be able to reapply. So they redid it the next semester, redid their interview.
So how do you assess standard 10 with this?
With the interview, I'm sorry. I can
Mhm,
barely hear
yeah.
you. It might be me.
Yes, how do you assess standard 10, especially with this interview?
All right, sorry. Sister Betsy was making sure I didn't need something. Um, sorry, I was caught off guard. Sorry. We don't, other than the collaboration, like the 4 Cs, I think that's the part that we don't look at the leadership. We have a leadership project that our students do whenever they apply to clinical practice. That began 1 year ago, and we're actually moving that into their student teaching. So the leadership part, but also leadership is measured through their participation here on our campus. But as far as this particular instrument, we use the part of the 4 Cs, but also the ethic or the advocacy, service, and lifelong learning as part of their leadership and their collaboration with others. So a lot of our students, whenever we use the rubric. There it goes. There's our service. We look for students, and students do share with us how they work with, and they're given the task of, let me pause. Just a second, I'm sorry. To help our students prepare for their interview, I send them a letter after we receive their application that gives them guidance on what they need to do for their interview. And part of that is preparing a presentation for a time whenever you led a group of kids or worked with a group of kids. So part of that is for them to connect their experience to the 4 Cs, the dispositions, as well. And those encompass the leadership and the collaboration that our students should be taking part in or have taken part in. And a lot of times our students sometimes don't see the connection of, I helped coach something, or I watched my cousin's kids, or I was a nanny, or I volunteered at a local food bank as being part of a service or part of showing leadership and collaboration, or how much you do have to work together in other things that you do in your life. So using the interview to help connect to standard 10 would be for them demonstrating what they do in our community as well. I don't think that answered your question.
Do you have assessments at program exit, when they exit the program, to make sure
Yes.
they've demonstrated all these standards?
Mm-hmm. They
Meeting the standards.
yes, they complete, they do another portfolio during their student teaching. So depending on how many placements they have, like our special ed elementary will have 3 placements. They'll do one piece of evidence from each placement with rationale. And they have to have a 3.0 on that same rubric that we used when we scored their portfolio. And at that point, they have to have a 3.0.
And I'm going to jump in because I've had committee members let me know that we're starting to run low on time. So we can't actually go through the evidence there. If there's no evidence submitted to show effectiveness, then the committee will have to consider that. But people are going to run out of time here. So I know with 2.1, Ashley had attached some MOA information and school report card data for effectiveness. I will let you talk about that, Ashley. For us, there was no data submitted on the other two. And so the problem with not having the data is that while you showed it here, the committee was unable to analyze it and kind of ask specific questions to determine effectiveness. So I appreciate you showing us those things, but I don't know that they will be able to make that determination. That's up to the committee. But Dr. Bay Williams, if you're okay, for the interest of time, I think what we'll do is we'll let her present on our 2.1, 2.2, and 2.3. And the evidence that we'll consider will be the evidence that was submitted with the draft, because I think we're gonna run out of time here. So I will actually let you go ahead and if the committee is okay with that. Are you, if there's any committee member who votes no, if you would unmute and just be like, Melissa Diebel, please shush. Okay, all right. So go ahead, Ashley. We'll let you just present the next three. And then if you all want to ask questions about standard 2 as a whole, maybe that would allow us to move forward here.
Sure, perfect. So 2.1, the MOAs, we did redo those. That was one of the things that we didn't fully understand. It did outline the expectations. Placement grids also help demonstrate where our students are placed with the school report cards to show the demographics and the diversity that we can say as a private institution that our students are interacting with in our communities. 2.2, oops, sorry, 2.2. And I guess I did misunderstand your directions somewhat. The one thing that has changed since I was able to submit our report a couple of weeks ago is Owensboro and Davis County has changed the way that they ask us to request placements for our student teaching. So that this is something new that would not have made it into that report because I was not aware of it at the time. But we have to go a different route to request those placements. And I'll be more than happy to share those. I've also included screenshots of the email conversation of what they are asking us to do instead of following our own procedures as well. So that is what the next two slides are. So, and I don't want to rush, but I want to be respectful at the same time. Then 2.3, let's see, sorry. Oh, and these were our placement grids, where we could make sure that we had our students in different types of classrooms. Some, they also attend the virtual classrooms on NTI days. They attend professional development days, in-service days. I went back through the ACC's presentation from last December and things that we have that were ongoing and things that we had completed. And then from the summer as well, we are still in process of working with Watermark. So this is our first fall semester of getting all of our things in and being able to pull data from that. It was very time consuming. And we did not choose to apply to be a candidate for AQUIP. We decided to go with the affiliate membership instead at this point. On the last slide, again, this is where I misunderstood. We are implementing something different for our spring field semester. Instead of just sending them out and say, here's 20 hours for math, we are actually going to block or sandwich it into our semester to where we're physically going out into the buildings with our students on those days. So it's kind of, we're taking our whole class to a school for that class period. And we're able to be there in the building with our students, to be able to go from classroom to classroom to visit our students in real time. So this has a little bit of an explanation of where that decision came from. Again, we're going to pilot it in the spring and see how that goes. And then the very last slide is just a link to our data day, which is the 18th, and what we are planning. It's kind of our running list of things that we need to make sure that we review, and make sure we're not collecting data just to collect data, to make sure that we're using that data in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the reason that we didn't want plans is because they're determining whether the programs are effective right now, and there's
Yeah.
been a lot of plans. So it's good to hear an update of what you plan to do. But I will let the committee, do you have any questions? This is the last update, so I don't know if you guys have any questions that you want to clarify. No, committee?
I don't think I have any questions for clarification, but I will say it's tough to kind of absorb and look at all of the data, having not had a chance to go through it and see how it aligns. And I understand this has been a tough meeting for you for sure. I do think that, we've kind of requested this data at lots of different increments. And I think you have the data in some of these questions. It's just not been supplied to us. So it's tough on the committee side of things as well.
Thank you, Danny. Anyone else? Okay, so the process is that we will, the site visit on standards 4 and 5 will occur at the end of February. And from there, the site visit team will make a recommendation to move forward with accreditation to the AAC. Their options will be full accreditation for 7 years or revoke. That will go to this committee, who will then, you all will vote on both program approval, which is standards 1 and 2, and the accreditation, the recommendation of accreditation. Both the program approval and the accreditation both go to EPSB. So EPSB will make the final decision on all of this. So you all just make a recommendation. And so I think with our meeting being in May, we can prepare this to go to the EPSB in June. So are there any additional comments or questions? All right, I'd like to thank the committee for being here today. Thank you so much for your patience and your time. Ashley, thank you for bringing your presentation and then being able to pull up some stuff to share some things with us. And I think we can head out. So enjoy the rest
Thank
of
you
your
to you.
day.
I just want to say thank you to you, Melissa, because you've done a lot of work to communicate, to provide support, to organize us, to pass information between us. And so I really appreciate your leadership, and to the committee for taking the time prior to this meeting to review the content that we had. Thank you.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I'll
Yes.
take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second, Casey.
Thank
All
you
right.
all. Have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Bye.